Danny Vu served in the Air Force for 6.5 years and is currently an engineering technician at Northrop Grumman. He believes there is a leadership and structural problem in the military and correlates it to high suicide rates. We talked about everything from mental health, fitness, discipline, investing, and a healthy sense of nationalism. Sometimes you got to just jump over the edge. And I think we just truly believe in the forum of open forum conversation, you know? Like just open forum dialogue and solving problems.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then getting people's issues out. And we were discussing before the idea of we're approaching our 10-year reunion since graduating high school.
So crazy.
And catching up with different folks, it's like within that 10-year period, everyone has their own path, their own experiences, which are, in my opinion, just cool to like listen to and catch up for one. But for two, there's like meaning within it. Everyone has their own story and it relates to someone else, and maybe you can benefit from it, or you don't feel alone in a certain challenge or a dilemma in your life.
Yeah.
And when you're caught in your own head and you're kind of just stuck in like, why is this happening to me? Hearing someone else that went through something similar, that's comforting, right? And that's why you want to start your own potentially, right? Your own podcast.
So the whole purpose of me wanting to start a podcast, you know, like growing up, I felt like I was always helping people, whether it was like a relationship, whether it was like family issues, whether it was, you know, just anything. I've always felt like I was kind of like always giving a little piece of me to other people who are missing a little piece, kind of like filling that little spot. And so throughout the years, I always thought like, you know, and it's still true to this day. Like one day, you know, instead of working 9 to 5, even though I'm doing like 5 a.m. to 2, I don't want to work for someone else anymore, in a sense that I want to work for myself. So that's always the goal. But the whole purpose of the podcast actually came like kind of random. You know, I was sitting there and I was always thinking like, yeah, there's something that I need to do that like helps other people. You know, so when I was younger, like when we were 18, the first thing I was thinking about was like firefighting. First thing I'm gonna do, go. You know, I'll be a firefighter. I can help people in the community. I can stay around. I can help like people that I know. So I did the whole firefighting thing for a year in college, and then I sat there and I was like, you know, this isn't actually for me. Like I thought this was, and I really enjoyed it, but I felt like this was more for like my mom more than anyone else. And me growing up, you know, my mom was single, so I only had one parent in my life. So I felt like I had to grow up really fast no matter what. So I felt like a lot of things were handed to me, and I hate that feeling of being handed something. So I was like, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to learn how to live paycheck to paycheck. I'm going to learn how to do my own taxes, all that stuff, right? So like at 19, I sat there and I was like, that's it. I'm joining the Air Force. Joined the Air Force. And then while I'm in, I know we'll touch part on that, but while I was in, I was going to school and I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. Like that's me. That's who I'm going to be. It wasn't to be like, you know, to me, money was never the reason why I wanted to do something, but it is a motivator.
For sure.
The more money you make, the more successful people see you. But I don't see that. You know, you could be very successful with no money. You know, you could be unsuccessful with a lot of money. You know, and so I sat there and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to school. I was so motivated. I go to school.
And real quick, so you said this is after the Air Force you're going to go to school?
This is during the Air Force.
Okay, so you decide like within the Air Force you want to do the nursing subset?
Yeah, so like when I joined, I was like, nice break from school. You know, been going to school for like, 12, 13 years at that point. So I'm like, okay, nice break from school. I joined the Air Force, and what does the military make you do? They make you go to school. Like you have to take classes. You have to better yourself as a troop so they can promote you and stuff like that. So I was like, cool, I'll go to school. Applied to the University of South Dakota, got in, went to school for nursing. And like, I'm getting to that point where I'm like right about to start touch base on clinicals. And I was like, hey guys, like once I get to here, you know, am I allowed to just go? Because clinicals is pretty random. So
go where?
Do clinicals for nursing. So when you go to the hospital and you actually do everything, you know, hands-on, in person, stuff like that. And so in the Air Force, we had a work schedule and you pretty much stuck to that. You know, if you're working the day shift, swing shift, mid shift, whatever. And I was like, hey, my schedule is going to be juggling around. They're like, the one thing I remember somebody told me was, yeah, I don't know a single active duty person that became a nurse. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, like if you guys work with me, I can definitely flex my time. Doesn't matter if I lose sleep or lose time at home to do free stuff. You know, it's just like, I was just so motivated. And that's what I want to do. And when they told me that, I was kind of like, it kind of brought me down a little bit. I was like, oh man, I'm like working towards a goal that's like unreachable. Like I can't even do this.
Due to time constraints? So why did they say you could not become a nurse?
So one of the main reasons that I think the military is failing today is leadership.
Really?
Out of everything that can go on, you know, you have like all these people willing to raise their right hand, sign up, and serve their country for the most part, right? And like everyone has a different background. Everyone has their own reason as to why they join. And there's a lot of bad leadership nowadays in the military that it's not about the troops, it's about them. So when they have these troops that come to them with problems, you know, they don't really get to know the person. They kind of take that issue and they're like, you know what, is this going to benefit me?
And if you experienced this firsthand?
Absolutely. You know, I had bad leadership. You know, I remember testing for staff sergeant. So I was in probably about three and a half years now. My shop lead at the time, I was like, hey, you know, like I'm testing for staff. What's the best way to go about this? Blah, blah, blah. He didn't even give me advice on how to do it. The first thing he told me was like, oh, don't worry about making it your first time. He's like, you don't need to be a leader right now. And not to say that I wasn't leadership quality. It's more so he was thinking because he was already a non-commissioned officer, NCO, right? So staff, sergeant and above. He was pretty much like, you know, we don't really need people to just make rank first time. Like, don't even worry about that. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, why would you tell people that? Like, what's the whole purpose of a promotion system if you don't want people to promote?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting idea because I feel like leadership is a core tenet of the military, which it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very top down to where if you, and I'm of course speaking from not being in the service, I don't have any experience, but if you have poor leadership and it's a top down system, then that could be a very fraudulent model because it's literally dependent on good leadership. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like it was taking something away from. Did he feel like it was taking something away from him?
I don't know.
For you to be moved up?
I don't think so. You know, there's a lot of jealousy in the you know, the funny thing about the military, I love the military. No matter how many bad things that I've been through, seen, experienced, you know, I've been through it all. And to be completely honest, I think because I went through those hardships, that completely molded me to who I am today. Like I would not be anywhere close to who I am today if it wasn't for the Air Force. And even through the bad times, you see the good. And so when I took what he said, it definitely was disheartening. You know, I was like, you know, even my leadership's telling me like, I don't need to focus on making it the first time. And this is something I want. So that motivates me in a lot of ways. And it's for like a lot of things too, you know? So when people tell me I can't do something, that's like, it fuels this burning desire inside of me to be like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to just show you and prove you wrong, show you that I can do it. So I took what he said, you know, in through one ear, out the other, and I made it the first time I tested. And when I tested for the promotion, I was supposed to make it. I can't remember how many points I was supposed to make it, but I made it by like 47 points or something like that, like way overshot it.
Nice.
And I remember he wasn't on a deployment when I found out. When I came home, I told him, I was like, hey, you know, I made rank. And he's like, oh, you know, I'm so proud of you. Congrats, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, to be honest with you, the reason why I made it is because you told me I wasn't going to.
You told him that?
Yeah. And he was like, oh, I didn't say that. And I was like, I can remember the time, day, where we were standing, the moment you told me that. And I was like, it literally had this burning desire in me to show you that I can prove you wrong.
Whoa. So nonchalant for him, but impactful moment for you.
Completely. And that's how I see it, especially in the military. You know, like a lot of people will brush things off. And so one of my main goals to be a staff sergeant or an NCO was the fact that I remember when I was a young troop, you know, leadership always asked for feedback. but then they like don't listen to the feedback, you know. So a unit can be failing and everyone in there will be telling you what's wrong, and the leadership will just brush it off and be like, you know, no, that's not the reason why. And they're so blinded by the fact that their ego is speaking for themselves. You know, they're like, you know, I'm not wrong. I know why this unit's failing. I'm just asking this question.
What does it mean to have a unit fail in the military?
So, you know, there's multiple, I guess, meanings.
Or in Air Force specifically, just to focus on what you dealt with. What does that mean?
So for my unit itself, you know, unit failing as a whole, there could be a multiple factor of things. You know, we had like high suicide rates. You know, that's a part of how your unit fails. You know, physical standards, people continuously failing PT tests, your unit's failing. You know, we were in an aircraft maintenance unit too, so not being able to produce sorties or flights for these bombers, that's a failing unit. So there's multiple reasons why a unit can fail. So there's different aspects on how you can better yourself and strengthen a unit. And so no matter how bad a unit technically is, there's also a good within it. So you can be producing all these flights, but then the mental health of your troops is like diminishing. So people don't realize that, and then the suicide rates go up, and they're like, oh, why are these airmen committing suicide?
God, that's so sad, because previous guest Patrick Kelhai, who also was in the service, he talked about that heavily, that the suicide rate was pretty staggering with what he was dealing with. And I've heard some research on, I don't know if it pertains to your unit, but like just with traumatic brain injury, even during testing, when you're hearing like bombs go off, and weren't you trying to do the bomb squad at one point?
Yeah, when I was 19, I was going through EOD school. So
EOD school. Okay, so we can get to that in a sec, but just that idea of, I mean, there's so many different reasons for mental health issues, but I think there's new research coming out on treating traumatic brain injury, and just realizing that it's not necessarily just like a football helmet-to-helmet collision. It's not having like a big bomb go off right next to you, but it could be little things. Like even if you're at a distance just during testing, it compounds and it has an effect on your brain.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And, I mean, you mentioned putting out like good production in one facet of the unit at like compromising your mental health though so it's just sad, because we hear about that a lot, the suicide rates being super high in the military. And what do you feel like are they doing anything about it internally? Are they giving resources to the Air Force? Because I remember Patrick Kelly was talking about they are building up infrastructure and resources, especially post 9/11 in Afghanistan era, which I know we're still there a little bit, but
yeah.
What do you think with the resources for mental health?
So the crazy thing, speaking from experience now, you know, seeing it from the outside in and being in and seeing all those resources and stuff like that, the crazy thing is now, yes, we're building it up, and I believe that mental health is really, like, mental health awareness is really big now in the military, because they realize like the leading number of deaths in the military wasn't from a war. It was from, I mean, if you want to consider it, but it was from the war at home, people committing suicide at home.
No shit.
And so if you look at the numbers, like, it's insane. Like the Air Force just alone in like 2019 had like 109 suicides Air Force wide. And like to a whole Air Force itself, yeah, that number might be small, you know, but from a previous year of 40s and 50s, or even in the 20s, you know, it was almost, even before I joined the military, I almost like didn't hear of anybody ever committing suicide. Maybe you had like a friend in school who had a brother who did it, but now it's like I can name off, you know, people at the top of my head. I can name off other units who've had suicides. And what's mind-boggling to me is the fact that we already had the resources to help these mental health issues and depression and PTSD and all these things, but being in and now being out and being able to talk about this, the crazy thing is the fact that when you speak up and you say, hey, you know, I have PTSD from an assault, I have depression, I have all these mental health issues, it actually hurts your career. Like, it gets to the point where your leadership will end up failing you, and some people end up not being able to re-enlist, You know, some people aren't able to move to a different unit, or PCS, which is moving to a different base for the most part. And when you speak up about your mental health, you know, at that point, you're kind of juggling what's more important to me, my career or my sanity.
So that process, you're saying they see you as kind of damaged because you're almost compromised by speaking up.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the resources, but now, no, you can't go carry this gun. And is that kind of on par with?
It's almost everything. Like, you can't, you know, they don't trust you with the weapon. They don't let you move to a different base because now you're a high risk factor. They don't let you cross train, which is like go from your job to another. They start like just taking things from you, like your promotion statements on your annual reviews. You know, they're like, oh, this person has mental health issues. Let's go ahead and give this promote now to somebody else. You know, like they start taking these little things from you that just start stacking and adding weight on top of how you're already feeling. You know, some of these people, you know, I have one friend in particular, she was trying to get a different base, trying to get a different job, and she was denied for everything. And the whole sole purpose for all that was because she spoke up about her sexual assault. You know, her physical abuse in her relationship that was completely away from the Air Force. I mean, pretty sure that guy was also in the Air Force, but you know, just like that home aspect, she reached out and wanted to report this and be like, hey, you know, this is hurting me. I'm trying to do better for the service. Mm-hmm. And now they're denying her of everything.
That's such a complex issue because it makes sense that if someone's going through mental health issues for whatever reason, even if it wasn't their fault, let's say, it makes sense to not like give someone a gun necessarily. Like you're compromised. Like maybe let's build you back up to get you to a point where you can be in a unit and have the ability to carry a firearm or do whatever needs to be done within the service. But I think the main goal would be is to not even let it get to that point.
Yeah.
Which nothing's perfect, but it's the same thing with like a firearm exam and passing background checks. Is background checks make sense. So if you are struggling and you bring something up and that's a problem that needs to be assessed now. So, I mean, as a leader, and of course I'm not speaking from experience within your departments and whatnot, or the service in general, if you are a leader selecting different subordinates for a position, you have to take in all the criteria, all the data. And if you have 10 people and 7 of them have had a record of mental health issues, even though they're struggling, that's their own personal story. They're bringing it to the table. They're seeking help. And then you have 3 people who are just that real tough, rugged, no problems. In their eyes, maybe more trustworthy at any given moment. Then does it make sense that they get promoted maybe in the beginning? And then is there a program in place to build up those other 7 individuals to get them to a level where, okay, their mental capacity seems to be healthy now. Let's bring them back into their career, or let's build them up in their career. To completely cut someone off, like you said, and then just stack issues on top of issues, that's not a good way to solve that problem.
No, it only makes it worse.
Yeah, it makes it worse. Absolutely. And have you had direct experience with people in your units coming home and like taking their own lives?
You know, I got out August of 2019, and you know, the military doesn't really prepare you to get out. And like, I'm thinking back now, you know, it's like my first real job, your mom hired me. You know, I was making acai bowls at Cold Fusion, you know.
Shout out Cold Fusion.
Yeah. Shout
out Warren Martin.
Shout out to that really good granola. But the crazy thing is, you know, that was my first job. And, you know, to say I'm blessed is, you know, beyond an understatement, because I didn't have to work when I was in high school, really. I got the job because I was like, you know, my mom's not making me work, so I'm going to go work, you know. So having friends take their lives while I was in the military, I remember, I think I was still in when my first friend took his life. And, you know, it was kind of a shocker to the unit because he was liked, a quieter dude, but I like knew of him. I was, you know, we're all like pretty much friends in the unit. It's whether or not you hang out on the outside that makes you really good friends. And so I heard about that, and I went to that funeral, and that was the first military funeral I ever went to. And I remember seeing like, just how damaging suicide actually is to a family, to friends. And it's so, it brings, it's kind of even hard to think back and talk about now. And I think it's probably easier now because I know how to cope with it. But that first time I ever heard, the 21 gun salute, or, taps being played, not over a loudspeaker and actually through like a trumpet, like it brings this weird, eerie, chilling feeling. And I remember the first time I heard that first gunshot, like I've heard explosions, I've heard gunshots before. And as soon as I heard that first gun round go off, like I immediately started crying. Like I couldn't hold it back. And no matter how hard I tried, and I was like, wow, this is so powerful. And what's really, I guess, cool to see is the fact that this one person in the service, yes, they took their life for whatever reason they wanted to, or, what brought them so low to that hopelessness feeling, that made him do that. And when you have this funeral, it really shows like the fact that he still rose, his right hand to serve the country. It doesn't matter how they die, whether it's in war, whether it's a suicide, you still get the military honors and people are still proud of the service and stuff. But that aside, that damaging aspect to friends and family, there are times where you feel like not only are you hopeless yourself because you can't help them, no matter how hard you try, you wish, anybody who commits suicide, as soon as you find out, and whether you're that immediate close friend or not, that first thing you question is like, what could I have done differently? Could they have called me, and what could I have done to pull them back from that ledge? And when someone gets to that point of suicide, they're so far gone and so hopeless that, that's really what's eating themselves. And, I can't say from experience because I'm not really a depressed person. I haven't had to deal with depression and stuff, but I've seen it within my family, and it's to that point where you kind of question like who really is okay, and so that was the first suicide. And I remember the second suicide was a guy that I personally served with in my like office. Right before I got out, I was a unit deployment manager. So he was getting out and he was in, and I remember deploying with this guy. I remember talking with him like every now and then. I remember going to the ranges and shooting guns with him. He had a daughter he was so stoked about and all these things. And then I found out he committed suicide. And even then I questioned again. I was like, what could I have done to help that? He felt like he was such a happy go-getter guy, and, people liked him. And here we are, back at square one again, round two. And this is all still within the same year. And at the end of 2019, I got home, I'm transitioning back to civilian life, trying to catch up with all my friends again, seeing people here and there. And then I get a call in October. I'm like, hey, I get a call from one of my best friends, Alex. It's like, hey, dude, you sitting down? I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, somebody else committed suicide. And I was like, oh no, who was it, right? And I'm not thinking any of my friends. And then I remember sitting in the car with Sam, and we were parked, and he's on over the loudspeaker. And he's like, hey, Tanner committed suicide. And Tanner was a guy that, I worked with closely in the shop. It was a guy that I also played volleyball with outside. The Air Force had their volleyball team, and he and I were like, the hitters for the team. We played these matches all the time, and people would be like, oh, watch out for this duo, whatever. And it's cool during the time to be like, oh, dude, like we're the best volleyball players right now. And so we were very close. I remember right before I got out, it was in August, we were sitting in his backyard, and he's like, hey, man, he's like, I know you're getting out and stuff like that. What's your plan? You and Sam going to have kids. And I remember just talking to him, and I was like, yeah, dude, it's going to be crazy one day when I have kids, and like I can bring them over and visit you guys, and our kids can play with each other and stuff. And I had all these videos on like my phone of him and his daughter, and, his wife was pregnant at the time too. And he ended up committing suicide. And so immediately, I think it hit Sam a lot harder than me at first. And I don't know, maybe it's like a weird way that I deal with sadness or my own version of depression, but I just I'm like almost emotionless for a while. And I remember one day I was driving to work and it finally hit me. Like out of nowhere, I just started crying. I just couldn't hold it anymore. And I was like, man, like so many of my friends are committing suicide and I can't do anything for them. And I know that they can't speak up because they'll ruin their careers, you know? So like, what can we do to help alleviate or just to help their situation?
Mm-hmm.
And so we were all at his funeral. A lot of us flew back from all parts of the world. You know, we're sitting in South Dakota again. It's like the first time everyone's been together since like 2015. And so this is 2019. So 4 years later, right? We're sitting there. We're like, guys, like, what can we do to help this cause? And so the number one thing everyone agreed to was there needs to be an outside agency where these military members can come out and speak about their depression or their, you know, their issues and not get any repercussions from it, because it's not safe to speak up in the military whatsoever. You know, you have people who want to spend the rest of their lives in the military, you know, give 20 plus years to the service. When they know those 20 years of their lives go by, they miss out on all these holidays and family gatherings and all these things. And they're so devoted, but when it comes to having that mental health, now they feel so alone because, you know, the big blue's not there to hold their hand and help them and guide them. And so I think, you know, God forbid there ever be another one, but I know there's going to be more, you know. And at this point in my life, I've been to more funerals than weddings, and it's hard to even think about. And, you know, sometimes I sit there and reflect about my life and how blessed I am to still be living here today. And I think really those hardships is what molded me to want to help people. So
That's heavy, man.
yeah.
Did anything come to fruition with this agency solution?
So we are thinking about starting a nonprofit, and you know, everyone's lives are pretty busy. So we were like headstrong. We were like, you know what, this is it. This is what we're gonna do. We're getting all these donations, and his wife was pregnant at the time, Tanner's, and we ran a fundraiser, right? And I was like, hey, you know, I'm just trying to get like a $5,000 goal to help out our friend. You know, that she just needs some baby supplies. And I ended up actually, I think, making like $25,000 out of just donations alone. I was like, see, like that hit me. I was like, the community is so powerful. You know, no matter how little of an impact you feel like you have. Like, it's crazy to see, you know, like I knew he was a really good guy, but I didn't realize how much he impacted other people's lives. So we tried to start this nonprofit. We like super headstrong about it, planned it all out. And I think life just kind of like, not necessarily got in the way, but it was at that time where people were PCSing to different bases.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of hard. So I still have all the planning with me, and I definitely want to end up still doing that nonprofit and starting this agency. But it also seems like the Air Force is getting to that way of helping these people with these issues. And so
So you think they are moving in the right direction?
I think now, you know,
because it's such a challenging thing, too. If someone's going through those mental health issues, as I've said, you have to weigh and measure that in how you're allocating resources and running the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be a solution where your career's completely busted and you have no future now because you're going through what would hopefully be a short-term challenge.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, these leaders, they do need to weigh and measure that. It's tough.
You know, it's not to say that we don't have good leadership, because there are some guys that, you know, were like way higher ranking than me that made me feel like I was on level with them. So when I became an NCO, I was like, that's who I'm going to be. I was like, I don't care what rank I am. If you need me, I'm not Staff Sergeant Vu, I'm Danny. Like, I don't care what you're going through, no matter what. And you get these old leaderships where it's like you walk past these people that you're currently helping in their own personal lives and stuff, and they're like, oh, hey, Danny, you know, how are things? And they overhear and they're like, that's Staff Sergeant Vu. You know, I'm like, hey, at work, just call me Sergeant Vu, whatever. But it's like that mentality right there that it just, you know, people aren't getting to know their troops and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to be that voice for those airmen like myself when I was younger who weren't heard, you know, who spoke up all the time and were never heard. So me, I was that type of, you know, NCO where I was like, tell me your issues and I'm going to bring them up. I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if there's repercussions for me. I was like, if I know that I did everything in my power to help you and you are still living and still here today, I don't care what I go through. You can take my rank. You can take my career from me. You know, life moves on. No matter what, life moves on. No No matter how bad things get, things will always get worse before they can get better. And that's what some people don't realize when they're hopeless, is like, I'm at my worst, you know, and their mind isn't right, and they don't realize that whatever they're going through, someone else is going through something even worse, or even the same situation, even worse with less than what they have. So that's how I think leadership should move towards, is just getting to know their people.
Just being better communicators, actually caring. But what about the stigma associated with the military, like being a hard ass, you know, everything we see in the movies, that top-down line of communication is very, like, your feelings don't matter. The whole idea is, like, we're programming you to be ruthless soldiers, ruthless in air quotes, of course, to where, like, if worst case scenario, it's not a matter of emotion, it's top-down orders. Otherwise, everything falls apart. Yeah. I think there's some validity to that, too, but not to say you can't be a little bit more open in communicating about feelings. But it's so strange. The same thing in the police force. It's everyone. It's not about your feelings. It's about do what you're told.
Shut up and do what you're told.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, be hard, but feel soft at the same time. You know,
it's just being a good communicator.
It's
I think
being
you
a good human being.
Yeah.
That's all it really is. It doesn't matter whether you're wearing a military uniform or a police uniform, a fire uniform, a suit and tie. It's just being a good human, right? Like, so whatever people go through in the military, people also go through in the civilian world. All the military is a job. I mean, it's also kind of like a frat, but it's mainly a job, you know? So whatever I was going through in the military, I know there's people going through the same thing in the civilian world. And
it's different. And of course there's different capacities to where if you're actually on a deployment, or if you're like seeing actual combat, I mean, that's probably a variant to where like civilians don't see that, or you would hope they never see that.
Exactly.
There's people out there in the military that are just absolutely incredible in the fact that what they've seen and what they've done. It's like civilians only see that in Call of Duty type shit, you know?
Yeah.
But with that being said, like you said, it's different. There's civilians going through similar challenges, and it's doing similar things in your brain and your body. Like people are feeling similar things. It's just a different way of like how it's being brought about. But I want to tie this into, because all this got brought up when you were saying, now that you've exited the military and you've adjusted to civilian life, and what are you doing currently? What's your occupation?
So now I'm working at Northrop Grumman. So I work in their space systems. I'm in their antenna development. So I'm doing a lot of stuff for space, like stuff going on shuttles and satellites and all that stuff. So that's what I'm doing now. It's, you know, it's kind of like it almost felt like the military when I transitioned. Same ID card, you know, same training, same things I can't talk about. And so that's what I'm doing now. And it's completely different lifestyle adjustment, but
it's similar elements.
Kind of, you know, there's still leadership, but now I'm getting to that part where like I got to realize what I'm saying, because there's also an HR department. I can't be too hard on people like I was when I was NCO, and like, hey, you know, get this done. You know, this is what we need. This is what we got to do. You know, yeah, it sucks, but we're all going through it. So let's just get it done. But now it's like, hey, can you guys get this done? No, there's not much else I can pursue or push. But I'm like, okay, you know, like we'll get it done when we get it done. So that's how I've adjusted so far back to civilian life. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm working at Northrop Grumman. It's been good, and I've always had this fascination for space. So being able to, like, you know, knowing that whatever I'm building or touching is going to space one day is pretty cool to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed the NASA shirt.
Yeah, that was like
space
completely off base too. I wasn't even thinking. I was just like, oh man, I need to wear something like that looked decent on camera.
No, that's a sick shirt, but I nerd out in space too. We can definitely get into that.
Yeah.
But you said that people started reaching out to you. Has it been recently, for whether it's life advice or just working through different issues? You felt people like you've earned that trust, and you have that personality, that open book like personality, to where people feel comfortable to contact you. And
you know, I believe so. And even if they don't feel that way, I want people to feel that way. Yeah. You know, like even if you know me, you know, if you knew me in 2012 in high school, I'm not much different than who I was back then. But with everything that I've been through, I want to say that people almost don't even know me anymore, because I'm almost a different person completely.
Same.
You know, like when we talk, I feel like we still know each other very well, but we've also gone through things that make us completely different human beings. And so, to the people who listen in and want to feel like they have somebody to talk to, like, I don't care, what I'm doing, who you look like, what you believe in. Even if we don't agree on certain things, I want to be able to, help people. And so I feel like recently, a lot of people have been hitting me up, I think, with the whole 75 hard challenge thing that was going on, and just getting to that mentality. Because I've always had that, like, I don't give a fuck mentality. Let's just, like, if you don't like me, you don't like me. And it's not to say that I don't like you, but it's because if it doesn't affect my life, why weigh in so heavy on my own personal experiences? And, people don't know what you've gone through. People could hate all they want. I'm like, I've gone through a lot of shit, and I don't deal with depression, but I'm dealing with my own demons too. And so, recently a lot of people have been hitting me up, and I out of nowhere, I was sitting in my office, and I remember sitting there, and I think like 4 or 5 people hit me up with some like deep, heavy stuff that day. And I was like, holy shit, I want to start a podcast. And that's how the whole podcast idea came. It was like
Nice.
instant. I was like, that's how I'm going to help people. I was like, because these stories that people are telling me, I've heard them multiple times, and I'm not copying and pasting the same answer at all, and there's a way that I think, when you want people to reach out, or with the whole depression thing, the main way to get people to really start speaking is to be vulnerable yourself. I don't care. I don't care if I'm the biggest, buffest dude or like the smallest guy. I don't care if I have tattoos all over my face. I'm an open book, and like, I'll be vulnerable all day. I'll cry with you. I don't even care. Like, I will sit there in public and cry with you, and it doesn't bother me because I really don't care what people think. And I think being compassionate and vulnerable with the other people is really how people start reaching out to me. Because I was like, whatever you're going through, we'll do it together. And I was that leader that was like, I would never tell you to do something that I wouldn't do myself if I'm not already doing it with you, And so when I talked to all these people that have been reaching me out lately, I was like, oh man, like, everyone's going through some heavy stuff, especially with COVID. COVID kind of like brought out the worst and the best out of us, all of us, and like these deep issues that we had that were kind of like pushed away are now like suddenly, resurfaced because we had to stop in our tracks. So a lot of people been asking me for advice on these things, and that's how my Instagram posts started coming about. Because Instagram was pretty big for me for a while, and then it felt like a job. I was like, I'm so done posting on Instagram. I was like, I gotta post every day. I gotta like post random stuff. And then so I was kind of like MIA, but I would post stories every once in a while. And then after all that happened, I was like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. This is my goal. If you want to reach out and talk about your problems, call me, because I don't care what you're going through. You could be going through some deep, heavy stuff, and I will still be there for you. I might not even agree with a lot of things you say, but it doesn't make you a bad person at all.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, because that's why I started Mind Meetings too, is just, I think open form dialogue is going to help a lot of people and solve a lot of issues, and just get things that are seen as taboo or people want to like bury and hide out there, so people can relate and find some comfort in that. I think that's really cool that, for one, you were just the type of individual where others felt comfortable to reach out to you, because that takes a special person in itself. And then the ability for you to be like, do you know what? I want to take this another step further. Like, I'm going to start a podcast where people can just call in, almost like a radio show, and you just hash things out. You just have a cool conversation, because that's sometimes all you need to feel a little bit better, is to have that conversation and baby steps and work in the right direction. And it's always just, because I've had similar instances with some people in the network committing suicide, or in my network, and it's just that first feeling of like, fuck, like, if I could have just talked to them for 5 minutes, just a couple minutes. And I think that's just you and I wanting to like help and give ourselves to other people, which I think is a good thing. It's an amazing thing. And now, with technology, the ability to produce podcasts is so much easier than back in the day producing a whole show. It's we can all connect on this level. Yeah. Have you thought of any like names yet, or any points of attack of how you want to actually start doing it, bringing it to fruition?
I like kind of overthink things a lot all the time. Like, it gets to the best of me a lot. And so when I was thinking of a name, I was like, man, what am I gonna call my podcast? And I'll be honest, I still don't have a name.
That's all right.
No name whatsoever. But I was thinking of names, right? And I was like, okay, people see, religion or a church as like a saving a safe haven for them, right? So I was like, okay, I want people to feel that same way, but religion aside. Not to say that I'm not religious or I don't care about your religion whatsoever, but I was like, I don't want people to see the podcast name and think, oh, this is all about religion, or I had a picture of a church or, whatever in the background. So I was still thinking of names, and I was like, okay, I can't really call it that. But then when I was looking through podcasts and looking at names, it was like, the Jocko Show, or just like people's names show. And I was like, oh, dude, I need to stand out somehow. So no, I haven't really thought of a name yet, and I still can't.
See, that's always an amazing thing, though, is you could just strap show to your name, because I'm not sure if there's any other Danny Vu shows out there, but if there's not, then that's uniquely you. That's literally by definition you. I don't really have that luxury, because Zach Brown is such a popular name, but
you're the only Zach Brown I know.
Really?
Yeah.
Zach
but I
Brown
know
band?
multiple Danny Vus.
Really?
Yeah.
No shit.
I only like maybe 2. I think I've only met 3 my entire life.
People always call me Zach Brown Band.
That's hilarious. I mean, the people still call me high school nicknames and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. But that's the only Danny Vu, that most people know too. So, I haven't thought of a name. I know it'll eventually come. I'm thinking about doing like a list of names and just letting people choose for me. Dude,
that would be legit. So, I want to learn more about the 75 Hard thing that you mentioned. What is this program?
So 75 Hard, Andy Frizella from First Form created this challenge, like this mental toughness challenge. And so the first time I heard about it, I've been following Andy for years. I used to just listen to only him talk in the gym, because I was like, man, the way this guy talks just makes me want to do so much better in my life. Like, it motivates me so much. And so 75 Hard was this mental toughness challenge that was actually brought up by Sam and I, our best friends. They came to visit, and they were like, yeah, we need to get our lives back together, so we're going to do 75 Hard. I was like, what is 75 Hard? And I kind of looked it up, and I was like, okay, 75 Hard in a nutshell is, the challenge is 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each. One has to be outside. Doesn't matter where you're at. I went to the river and I had to do an outside workout, and it was hot. Don't get me wrong, it sucked, but I think that's what the whole purpose of the challenge is. So it's 2 workouts, 45 minutes each. One has to be outside. They can't be back to back. You can't do an hour and a half workout. It has to be a break in between. So I was, when I was looking it up, I was like, oh, how long is this break? But realistically, this challenge is as tough as you want to make it for yourself. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is to drink a gallon of water a day. And I feel like I already did that. But then when I actually counted out how many Hydro Flasks that was and drinking, I was like, dude, I don't drink enough water a day. I'm drinking like maybe half a gallon. So that's the second aspect to it. The third is you have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction like self-help book, which is really great because I wanted to start reading a lot again. And 10 pages a day goes by pretty damn fast. And there are times where I get hooked. I'm like, I'm doing 20 pages today, and like once you start seeing the pages, or the book gets smaller and smaller, you're like, wow, I'm like actually flying through this book at only 10 pages per day. And it has to be a physical book. It can't be your Amazon Fire or your whatever digital book. You can't even listen to a podcast or an audio book because you want to be able to physically see how far you're getting along on these books.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's the third aspect. The fourth one is you have to take a progress picture every single day. Pretty easy. It's also easily forgotten. And during this whole challenge, if you forget any of these things, you have to start over at day 1.
Discipline. You got to be disciplined.
Completely disciplined.
All about discipline.
The fourth, I think that was that third. So another aspect, whether it's fourth or fifth, you have to eat clean. There's no cheat meals whatsoever. And cheat meals to some, a grilled chicken salad could be a cheat meal to somebody else and it's not to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're already eating very unhealthy, what is a cheat meal to you? So to me, I was like, you know what? I think that was the hardest thing. I was like, how am I going to do this clean diet, no cheat meals? It's like, I don't know what I should be eating because I already eat kind of clean. So my thing was, I was like, okay, I'm still trying to gain muscle during this. I'm not trying to be like a twig coming out of this. I'm still actually trying to work out. So I eat pretty much how I eat now, except I gave up sugars. No sodas, no candy, because that was my big thing. As soon as somebody gave me like a piece of candy, it was game over.
Really?
Yeah, game over. I'll just one donut, it's probably going to be 12. Like a slice of cheesecake will turn into the whole thing. So I
think that was number 5. So you were already eating super clean going into 75 hard. So
Yeah.
is it 75 days? Is that where that comes from?
So 75 days straight. The last part of those is no alcohol. So you can't have a single drop of alcohol, which is kind of easy to me because I feel like now that I've gotten out of the military, I don't drink almost ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll drink a beer here and there, but like I realized that alcohol was just making me feel like shit. You know?
It's poison for sure.
And some people handle it way better than me. You know, I get the Asian glow. I'm like, heart's racing, all red. I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe.
No way.
Yeah, dude, it sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Sucks.
I
So,
think
yeah.
Ben gets that too.
It's hard too, and like some Asian people don't get it. You know, I wish I was like that. I used to try to take
Yeah, what's that pill called?
is it Pepsid?
Yeah.
I used to chew Pepsid like right before going to the bar. Doesn't help. I'm still red. And
No
even if I'm
shit.
not red, my heart's pounding. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't really drink anymore anyway. So yeah, those are the things. You have to do it 75 days straight. So there's no off days whatsoever. Like the moment I wake up, I'm like already drinking water. I take a picture either when I'm working out or right before I go to work and stuff. And if you slip up at any point, you know,
Start over. So
Or
how many
you just
days in
stop.
are you?
I think today, I'm almost done on day 39 today. I think I got
39?
last thing I got is 10 pages of reading. And it's gotten to that point where it's a routine now.
Yeah.
You know, the first week I was contemplating and I was like, you know, this kind of sucks. And I actually didn't even want to do the challenge at first. Not to say that I'm not up for a challenge. I love putting myself in the most difficult situations. And I think that's how you grow. And Sam was going through a lot of mental health issues. And I was like, hey, you need change in your life. I was like 75 hard. Listen to this podcast. And Andy talks about depression and, you know, mental fortitude and all these things. And then at the end of it, she listened to this whole podcast and was like, all right, let's do it. I was like, cool. She's on board. You know, like I really want this for her. You know, I'm super excited. And she's like, let's do it today. And I was like, I was planning on starting it like 3 days from now. But in the podcast, Andy talks about how it's like, if you're going to do it, just do it. Don't even think about it. Just straight up do it. And then figure it out along the way.
Are you referencing your wife or Sam Caudill?
My wife.
Oh, okay.
So she, you know, she's going through mental health issues, and she was kind of using depression as like a label.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, hey, you know, I'm not going to do this, or I'm feeling this way. And it was always like, depression's the reason. Depression, that, this and that. And I was like, you know, like it's not, you're not a depressed, like everyone has their form of depression, but you just need some sort of change. Like me, I feel like I'm mentally strong. Like you know, even through the worst of times, I'm like, I can get through this. But, you know, other people aren't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam, unfortunately, wasn't like that. You know, she's not like, okay, I'm going through some hard times. That's it, depression. There wasn't like, how do I combat this? And so I remember always telling her like, hey, you know, the way you're feeling it is probably because of why it is. Like maybe you feel like you suck because you suck. Like it's not depression that makes you suck. So it's kind of hard, but
Well, that's tough. So
yeah, it's hard to talk about with her.
yeah, no, I understand. She's not here, so we don't have to get into it too much. But it's just people deal with things differently, and if you're not happy for any given reason, there's usually some sort of like you got to try to pinpoint. Well, why am I feeling this way? Is it am I unhappy at work? Am I unhappy in my relationship?
Exactly.
Am I not happy with myself physically?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, okay, if that's the case for a lot of people, and it's not even just a physical look, but biochemically, start exercising, start eating better, and you'll be surprised with what outcomes you can get. Yeah. But you guys are both doing 75 hard together.
Yeah. So I originally wanted her to do it, and I wasn't not necessarily planning on doing it. But then I was like, you know, I'm not gonna let her go through this alone. And that's just who I am as a person throughout my military aspect, or even now. So I was like, I'm doing it with you. And then the moment she said, let's start today, I was out and I contemplated it. I was thinking in my head, I was like, this is what Andy's talking about. No matter how mentally tough I am, or I think I am right now, personally, I was like, the fact that I even considered starting this 3 days from now, not today, already shows that maybe I need some change.
Like an excuse.
Yeah, it was like almost an excuse. And so, you know, 39 days in, about to hit 40 days, I've actually, the crazy thing is I feel like this challenge has done way more for me than I ever thought. Like way more. Like I am completely different than who I was 39 days ago.
How so?
And so
physically you look great. Have you been leaning up?
We were doing meal prep meals the first like 2 weeks, and I realized I was eating like 1,200 calories and doing 2 workouts a day. And I went from I went from having abs in the military to like no abs, and then like kind of like feeling like overweight to like having abs in 2 weeks. And I was like, holy shit, like
mad deficit.
This is crazy. Yeah. And so that's when I was like, okay, we're still going to do the meal prep meals, but I'm also going to start intaking more because I'm not trying to get ripped out of this at all. Like, it's not a physical challenge whatsoever. It's all about mental toughness.
Well, I mean, 2 workouts a day by definition is physical too, right?
Oh, it definitely. But I think that's the thing is like it makes it so it's inconvenient for you. It's like, yeah, you know you have shit to do, but you also know you have 2 workouts you need to take care of. Because there are times where I'm at work and I'm like, I got to go to an appointment later. I'm going to go get my first workout in outside right now. And then when I get home, I'll get my second workout. Then I'll go to my appointment. So you have to make that schedule. I think on day 8, Sam and I went to the river and we got our first workout in, or she got her first workout in at like 5 in the morning. I got my first one when I got home from work at like 3. As soon as she got home at 5, we drove 4 hours to the river. And as soon as we parked the car, we did the second workout. Exhausted. It was hot. We were tired.
That's intense.
But that's what it is.
It's a lot of dedication.
Yeah, so it brings up that mental fortitude. And I thought I was a very tough person, but it's changed me completely. The whole podcast idea came because of this. You know, I honestly think everyone should go through this. Even if you think you have no issues, I think you should take the challenge regardless. Because I like a challenge. I like physical, hard labor. I also like mental, like, you know, anything that stimulates my mind, I love that stuff. And I feel like if you're not constantly learning yourself or about something, that's when you start really dying, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that's correlated with Alzheimer's and whatnot too. If you're not using that muscle constantly, then it withers away just like any other muscle.
Yeah, you can work out all you want, be the buffest dude, but if your mind's, you know, not mentally tough either, like who are you really? You know, like muscles don't matter when you're laying in a casket, you know? And so I wanted to take this challenge on to help her. But honestly, this has helped me so much in my aspect of my life because I'm like, now when I hear people tell me these excuses of why they can't do something, I'm like, bullshit. Like, I wake up at 3:45 every day for work. I come home, I have to cook, I have to clean. You know, I still have a family to see. I still have to hang out with Sam. I still have 2 workouts I got to do. I still have to my photography stuff, all that stuff. Whatever, you know, there's 24 hours in a day, and all it takes is for you to do all those tasks before you go to bed.
Yeah. So it just brings up the variance in how people operate. Like, what's tough to one person is not tough to another.
Yeah.
And you could also measure like people's happiness. So let's say you're not doing the 75 hard. But like you consider yourself a pretty happy person. It's like, okay, that's you. Like, you want to be a super extreme person doing all these workouts and being super regimented. And it's like, okay, if that makes you happy, that's fine. But a lot of people claim like, oh, I don't necessarily need that to be happy. But a lot of people would be surprised at what it would actually do to your body and to like your mental capacity. Yeah. Because fitness has always been a pretty important part of our lives, physically and like mentally. Because mental fitness, like you said, is just as important, if not more.
It was our way to cope, working out, you know, with whatever we're going through. When I was sad, working out was there for me. You know, lifting heavy weights and putting it down. You know, it never changes. Yeah, it's always there, no matter what, for your use. And so no matter what you're going through, lifting was the thing for us. Yeah, I feel like
it does make you feel better if you're having a hard day and just physically exerting yourself. I think you have less energy that's devoted to some of these problems, which is a solution, but also not, because they're still there.
You can't hide from
the mental, like those issues, those challenges are still there. You're just literally burning yourself out to not have to like worry about them. But for me, it's just being like trying to be scientifically like literate and understanding what's good and what's not good for your body. I feel like I'm betraying myself, my future family, my life, if I'm not taking care of myself. And that's not to say that like we're perfect.
No,
like I still enjoy, I still enjoy like partying and having a good balance like once in a while. But if I don't take care of myself, then like I won't be able to see, like I want to see my great grandkids running around, you know. I want to be there for that, and I want to feel healthy and be healthy. I mean, so that's why I'm saying that's us. Like, we're in that lifestyle. Our brains have been trained, especially yours being in the military. You have that dedication and the capacity to do something like 75 hard. And the reality is there's so many people out there that, excuses or not, so much of their energy is devoted to just the system that they're caught in, whether it's an early pregnancy, whether it's a job that just sucks the life out of you,
Yep.
Living paycheck to paycheck where you don't have a support system
Mm-hmm.
that gives you the flexibility to take risks and take chances. And I mean, you're pretty blessed too, in the sense you mentioned early on that your mom taking on the mother and father figure for you, like busted her ass and worked so hard to provide for you and your brother, to where you didn't have to worry about some things that another kid that's less fortunate. Same thing with me.
Yeah.
But to remain hard and develop work ethic through that, I think is really important, because you'll have spoon-fed kids. Not saying that you or I were spoon-fed, but just take the extreme example where there's that inclination of parents to kind of to take care, like to give their kids a better life than that what they had. But by doing that, it makes them softer.
It ruins them.
And I think developing these healthy habits in fitness and putting healthy nutrition in your body, just keeping your system running clean, putting good fuel in, it's a regimen that people should just have. If you're bound to a desk by virtue of living and working in 2021, then you have to supplement something, because we're not outside under the sun anymore. Like you have to develop a schedule then that pays the bills, but also takes care of your body.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you should want that. Like,
you know,
that's
some people aren't like that. And I didn't realize how important being outside was for you until I left Orange County. And the crazy thing is, growing up in SoCal, right? Everything we do is outside. Why? Because we have great weather. We have great weather. We don't have to worry about the snow, whatever. The first time I got to South Dakota in 2014, November of 2014, right before Thanksgiving, there was a blizzard. It was snowing, right? And then I think the first shift I was put on was the graveyard shift called mid shift. So it's from 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. So I almost never saw the sun. I would eat breakfast or my dinner at 8 o'clock in the morning, go to bed until like 3:30, go to the gym, and then now it's like dinner, boom, right back to work. Never really saw the sun. I started feeling like really sad about shit. I was like, man, like I didn't realize that seeing people just walk around at the circle or out in public like actually meant something to me. Like the fact that I'm driving around not really seeing people, kind of depressing. And then I started really feeling like bad. I was like, dude, I'm like not feeling myself. I don't know what's going on. And then I went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, you know, like it's pretty common for people who come from sunshine states to have very low vitamin D levels. And that's why you're feeling what you're feeling. I was like, so you're telling me all I got to do is step outside and let the sun attack my skin for a little while. It's like, that's exactly what I'm telling you. So they prescribed like 12,000 milligram vitamin D pills. I had to take it for like 2 weeks and I like immediately started feeling better.
No shit.
And then, so now even working in a lab and like not really seeing the sun, I'll make sure that I step out at least to like get some sunlight. I mean, you can't, obviously if it rains, there's no sunlight, whatever, right? But majority of the time it's sunny. So I make sure that even when I get my second workout in, I go home, and since now I'm working out in my garage, I like make sure I see the sun and I'm like working out in an outdoor environment because I need that to rejuvenate me. And people don't realize that until they leave. You know, some people don't realize that just getting the sun, not having the sun will make you depressed.
It's true. I mean, even with preventing harsh like COVID symptoms, it was a vitamin D deficiency. Was the problem for a lot of people in the ICU. And coming from, like you said, Southern California, we're so blessed in this area. Like the weather, we're not really challenged by the weather too much. We don't have these systems that kind of humble us. Like you can't go anywhere. You're literally stuck in your house because there's a snowstorm outside. Doesn't happen here. Doesn't happen in Orange County. But we also are blessed with that constant sunshine for the most part. It barely rains. And I feel it too I'm so used to the sun. You go out and it's a super cloudy day, or I'm like, oh, whoa, feel a little off today. Just don't feel maybe as stoked.
Something's
off. And vitamin D is good to supplement no matter what. So if you're in a freaking concrete jungle and you're in a cubicle or whatever, it's a good idea to supplement vitamin D no matter what. I highly recommend it. And it's pretty affordable. It's easy to act like you can order on Amazon.
Exactly. Amazon.
You can literally source like quality vitamin D. But I remember seeing some of like your photos and just knowing that you were in a totally different hemisphere now, like up in South Dakota, and it's like the geography there is a trip. Isn't it like very flat and there's just crazy wind storms and it's like extreme freezing? And
It's, the crazy thing is it's colder than South Dakota, or South Dakota is colder than Alaska. And growing up, I was like, oh man, Alaska's probably so cold. But South Dakota is freezing. And the crazy thing is the summertime is beautiful. It's like over 100 degrees. We go to the lakes and stuff. But during the wintertime, which is like 11 months out of the 12-month year, it's like constant cold rain. And there are times when I was working and it was snowing and it'd be like, oh, -8 degrees. I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel too bad. Wind chill, -56. And you're like, fuck, this place sucks. Like, what? Why did I do this?
Why are humans here?
Yeah. Why did I pull myself away from such a perfect climate to here? And obviously I know the whole reason now, but even then it was like, it would get to like 18, 20 degrees. We're like, oh shit, it's tank top and shorts weather, which would blow my mind, right? Because it's 65 here, and I'm like, it's freezing.
You acclimate to 18.
I've seen it go from like negatives to like almost 100 in the same day. There was one time when I was working.
What?
It literally
negative to almost 100, or I mean,
it was like negative at night and went straight to like almost. It was like in the 80s or 90s that morning.
Whoa.
And I remember one time in May, it was like the end of May, and I didn't pack any cold weather gear, and I'm like going to work. I sit there and I'm like, guys, it's snowing outside. And I have a picture on my phone where we literally built a snowman, and that like 8 hours later, all the snow is gone. Like, that's South Dakota.
Crazy. I mean, the extremes there, I think just because you're on that like northern hemisphere, and then also because it's pretty flat there, right? There's not much.
Very flat.
So that adds another extreme. And then just during winter and summer, the way the Earth's tilting towards the sun, it's more of a direct spotlight.
Yeah.
And we were just blessed to be born, because it's random in this area. Like, when you can't choose where you're born, dude. You just literally grow up, and you have your parents making decisions for you, and you're just along for the ride.
Yeah. And we got to count our blessings. I think my biggest advice to anybody growing up in our situation, whether you're lower class, middle class, higher class, whatever, just coming from SoCal in general. Yeah, I know there's going to be live and, die hards, live and die in LA, live and die in Orange County, whatever. And I've met those people, but those are also the people who aren't as humbling as you would think, right? They're kind of shitty people for the most part. And that's not to say that they don't appreciate what we have, but I thought I appreciated what we have in SoCal until I left, and I couldn't come back when I wanted to. The fact that we can get food at any time during the day, we can go into stores open late at night. We can go to these clubs or bars that we like doing, or even just like music festivals or stuff like that. Being landlocked like that, not being able to see the beach, not being able to get food past 7 o'clock at night, little things like that make you appreciate SoCal so much more.
And I mean, these people, I don't know that they're shitty necessarily. It's just, it's different, because
it's very different.
There's something that really rubs you the wrong way, right? When you hear someone just kind of talking out of their ass, or spoon-fed, and they're not appreciating being like a multi-generational American, for example, in Orange County. Like, that is like, you almost already won the lottery to start.
Yeah.
It's just, you would hope that someone would show more appreciation for it, but sometimes that's not always the case. And
it's kind of like what we talked about coming up. It's like, we came from families who obviously did well for themselves, but we weren't spoon-fed everything. Like, we had to learn shit that we should have learned as a kid. There are kids growing up today where it's like, hey, I'm gonna teach you about your IRA or your savings account I've been building you. I didn't have that growing up.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the podcast started. Well, because I've seen you post about investing, and whether it's crypto or different stocks and whatnot. It ties into the idea of, one, we weren't really educated on this stuff in the public school system.
Yeah.
And then our parents were too caught up in their own lives, or to really teach us too much about it. And I'm not trying to be critical or harsh on them. Like, it is what it is. But we taught ourselves that stuff. Like, I didn't learn about having healthy credit, or investing, or money management. Yeah. I don't know, and I can't really pinpoint how or why I was able to teach myself, or it happened.
when you're younger and you sit there and you're like, oh man, my parents are doing their taxes, or, oh, they're paying for this house. I remember when I was a kid, I'd be like, when do I learn how to pay bills? Like just a phone bill is simple, right? And the thing you think about now is at this point in our lives, the reason why we learned is because we just did it. Like, hey, I need a place to live. Let me just look for a place to rent. Boom, bills start stacking on. Then you're like, when did I learn how to like manage where my money goes and all that stuff? I don't remember any point in my life where I learned it from someone else. It was always like from, myself. But the whole
like doing research, right?
Doing research.
So it's still other people putting out the resources.
And I think the issue with our parents are great. And I think the only thing is it ties into that bad leadership that I was talking about in the military is their generation, which is pretty much the leadership I had, is like one track minded for the most part. And it's not to say that's bad. It worked for them because what happened when they were younger? Get a job, get married, buy a house, have a kid. People can't even buy houses nowadays because the wages aren't even livable. I remember looking up this chart. To live in Southern California, to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, you need to be making about $37 an hour. I don't know many people making 37. Yeah. And so
it's the cost of living and wages is not. It's not consistent. Like it's not rising at the same rate.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue. It's a supply and demand issue, but. It's a challenge. We don't have the same luxuries that our parents did in buying a $200,000 home, which is worth 1.2 million now. And like you calculate that over time, how much that's paying you out, just the increase in equity. Like
you could sell that home, pay capital gains tax, and still be perfectly fine. Most people are paying for homes that are worth 200,000, but somehow had to get paid 800,000 for.
Yeah.
It's almost unfair, and it sucks because when they were going to school was also very cheap for them. Wages were smaller, but a lot of things didn't cost as much. Nowadays, it's like everything costs so much. Going to school, you put yourself in debt pretty much for the rest of your life until somehow you end up paying it off. And so with the whole thing with us growing up and having to feed ourselves those things, I was like, I'm controlling my life from now on. And I think that's the issue with why the older generation hates that millennial generation, because millennials are, there's more successful millennials. There's more millionaire millennials. There's a lot of things that our older generation didn't have or aren't currently doing. And that's that jealousy of them. They're like, oh, millennials suck. And we're like, no, we have to bust our ass to get to where you guys even were without doing as much work. And that's how our generation is now, is just like hard ass work. Grinding.
You think
constantly.
So? I think they literally think the polar opposite, and I don't know enough about the statistics to speak on it, but they view millennials like, oh, you guys aren't hard workers, you're slackers, like too much technology, you guys are too soft.
No,
of course I'm generalizing now.
Yeah.
But it's just different times, and within these complex systems, like the solutions evolve and change. So a business model that worked in the 60s, 70s, 80s might not work now. But then post-tech era, there's business models now and systems that work that would not have worked then, or like weren't even, didn't even exist yet. Yeah. So I think it's just the ability to be fluid and adapt is really important. And realizing that new generations coming up are going to be different. Mm-hmm. The way you make money is going to be different. Prices are going to be different. Yeah. And you brought up like inflation rates of goods just cost more now.
Yeah.
And there's just different holes being poked in the American system with the super wealthy and the poor, like that gap increasing like pretty dramatically, to where now a middle class home or a middle class family can't really even afford a home, or at least in this area. And that forces people to move to other areas and other states where, for example, like in Boise, people leaving California to go to Boise, which relative to Orange County is cheaper, but now you're increasing the home prices in Boise for their local resident. They can't afford the homes now.
It's happening everywhere.
It's just it's a trickle effect. And I think the rates of the cost of homes in the United States in the past year has gone up almost 20%. I think it's like 18 or 19% on average. And that's on average. Like the extremes, it's ridiculous. There's some homes, God, what was the example I heard yesterday? That I think it was my stepdad telling me about Boise, where like I believe it was his cousin acquired a piece of property, and it's gone up like 40-something% in the past 8 months from when he bought it. Like people, you can just start flipping that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think things are going to settle. COVID, of course, through just a worldwide drastic change in how everything's operating.
Yeah.
But tying it back into investing and being financially literate, I think is super important. Why the public school system doesn't teach about it is
I think our public school system sucks.
Absolutely beyond me.
Yeah.
I'm actually bringing on Ponko in the next couple weeks, hopefully.
Sorry, Ponko.
No. Well, I mean, he's in the system. He didn't write it, but I want to ask him some of these things and flesh them out, because then you have parents too that are so busy or caught up in their lives, even though I would argue you still need to make that sacrifice to, if the schools aren't educating your kids on credit and financial wellness, then you need to step up and do that. That's literally part of preparing your kid to be better off in today's society.
Yeah.
And how did you, because I've seen you post like different stock market and surging and whatnot. Yeah. What was your first steps to get involved in that kind of stuff? Did you watch YouTube videos? Did you do research? Or are you on Reddit and kind of following? I thought you were posting about this AMC surge.
Oh,
I think
Reddit
that
stocks.
happened.
No, the crazy thing is when I was posting those AMC or just like Reddit stocks that were going on at the time, I honestly wasn't even playing any of those things. Like I honestly take Reddit for like a grain of salt. When I look for a review, I go to Reddit. But when I go for financial advice, it's definitely not Reddit. You know? And so I remember, I think it was like 2017, I was getting into crypto. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like gambling. Let me put in a little bit of money and get a little bit out, you know? And so I dabbled like that for a while. But then I think right after I got out, I was sitting there. I was like, okay, I don't have a military retirement anymore. I have a 401k, but I was like, I also have some extra money from, making more money now. So I was like, what can I do with that? And some people would just spend it, and just buy whatever they want. And I was like, okay, I like to buy whatever I want, but I also want to make some money. And investing was one of those things I was never taught. So
like making money off your money is the general idea.
At all, whether it was like, when I was an airman, when I first joined the military, a lot of people were like, hey, set up a TSP, which is practically a 401k. And I was like, no, I like my paychecks.
What's a TSP? I've never heard of that.
So it's a thrift savings plan. So it's practically, you take a little percentage out of your paycheck, military matches it, and then throws it into the same account. So it's practically a 401k. Mm-hmm. But I didn't learn about that. So I was like, no, I want my paychecks to be what they are. I'm not going to put it into this account and like take 10% of my paycheck out or whatever, right? And it's funny because now I'm like, I need to do this because I need to do it for my future. But the crazy thing is, like, you see these ways, and I was like, I wasn't trying to be get rich quick at all. And I remember the first time I started wanting to learn to invest, I had a couple friends who were already invested. And so I was in these group chats, and every time I ask a question, I would like kind of get shut down. Not in a bad way, but they're like, oh, I don't want to be the reason why you lose money. I was like, okay, whatever.
Disclaimer, people always say that this is not financial advice, but here's my financial advice.
Exactly. Like what I post on Instagram now, it's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Whether or not you want to, it's on you. I'm not telling you to buy something. I'm not telling you to sell something. But I see it as, if I'm going to make it rich, we're all going to drink out of this cup of prosperity. If I'm going to be a millionaire, I want you to be a millionaire. Yeah. I don't know why people are so competitive and like, oh, because Zach has a podcast, mine's going to be better. It shouldn't matter like that.
Yeah.
Nothing should matter.
We were talking about that. I think there's something innate that in us, which is for one, competitive, two, like jealousy.
Yeah.
And three, it's just everyone's competing for what we've been programmed and evolved to think is a limited amount of resources, whether it's cash in society, whether it's homes in a given area, whether it's like, oh, that river, that lake's only so big, or we can only have so much land by the ocean. It's just we're very much as humans programmed to think in that limited capacity. Yeah. To where now I think technology and like the ability to broadcast different things
Yeah.
on the internet, it's almost infinite. Like it's a data issue, but it's pretty much infinite. So there's elements there that if someone's got a really successful stock, like you're in your group chat and like, oh, should I share this information with everyone or
charge people for it?
Charge people
and
for
that's
it,
what
or
I was
just
running
keep
into.
it.
Or
Really,
dude, I was
okay. So see that though, like charging for intellectual property,
yeah.
I totally believe in. I think if you have some value to add to society,
Yeah.
There's a big variance in like the importance of the information. Like, should everyone know what's good and bad to put in your body? Like health news, for example. That's not like, I don't know, I'll tell you what's in that cheeseburger, like a McDonald's menu. Oh, you can know what's in that cheeseburger, but you got to pay me for it. It's like, no, like some information should just be accessible to everyone. But financial advice, there's a market for it. It's like, no, if I'm going to teach you or train you, then you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
And, of course, being on the other end of that, you're like, come on, just be a cool homie or just tell me, blah, 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 which in your immediate network, friends should benefit one another and should try to teach their fellow friends what's good and what's bad in the financial market, for example. But what was your experience?
The way I see it is, if you believe in your friend, if my business was to teach people how to invest, which it's not, by the way, then yes, my friend should pay for it. So like, if you want to learn to invest, I took all this time to learn, and now I'm willing to teach you guys, and this is like my income now. Okay, I understand. It's kind of like my wedding videography stuff. It's like people are always asking for discounts, but I'm like, hey, like if you believe in my work, then you would just pay for it. Like same thing with you. If the funny thing is I never ask for a discount ever, unless it's like Home Depot or Lowe's where I'm like, okay, I don't want to really pay taxes on whatever I'm buying for the house, right? But I usually never ask for a discount, almost ever. And that's not to say that that I don't like having discounts. Of course, everyone likes having discounts. But if you have a business that I need and I want you to be successful, why not pay you what your asking price is?
For sure.
You're only as valuable as what someone's willing to pay you. And that's for anything. I've had people come up to me like, I really wish I had hired you for my wedding because my wedding video came out like crap. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't know what to tell you. Whatever. So the whole investing thing, I was joining these groups. And it was like free to talk amongst each other, but then it wasn't free to learn about investing. I was like, dude, what? I was like, all I want to know is what should I do? What book should I read? What link should I look at to just learn about investing? And I never got that information from anyone. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn it myself. And after I learned
keyword searching at that point, right? Just for different
everything. I was like,
material.
How to invest. What app should I buy? When to buy a stock. Little things like that. And like I started building like my knowledge.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, I started a group chat myself. I didn't charge a single person. I was just like, you guys are my friends. I want everyone to be successful.
Nice,
like,
man.
Here's all the links that I learned. I was like, however you learn it, though, I'm giving it to you. Whatever you do with that information's on you. And so it goes from people wanting to learn to invest to like, hey, what are you buying? Hey, what are you selling?
Yeah.
And at that point, okay, I see that maybe people should start charging for that, because it's like, if you want to see what I'm buying and selling, and you want to take that financial risk, then maybe you should pay for that, because there are people who sit there and like look at stocks all day, look at fundamentals, watch these charts. I don't have that time. Like the time, the funny thing is I day trade, but like my goal was to make $100 every single day right before I got to work. So I'd wake up, look at my thing, try to find figure out some play, make $100, cash out, and just walk away for the rest of the day.
Nice.
And that's all it really is. But I didn't get to that point from someone else because no one was willing to teach at all. And there are people willing to teach, but you got to pay for these courses. And there's a lot of shit courses out there. Nowadays, if you want to learn something, there's a course for everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Say that again.
It's like, you want to start a podcast? Buy my How to Start a Podcast course. You want to learn about fitness? I can teach you. Buy my course. There's a course for everything nowadays. And okay, yeah, it's cool if you want to learn. And yeah, I understand that, all these are different business models for people, but they're also shit courses, and people are just taking advantage of you. People are taking, I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone hire a coach, like a fitness coach, copy their whole workout during their coaching experience, and then charging other people, and they're like, hey, I'm a fitness coach now, and just copying and pasting those fitness workouts. And I'm like, dude, you
Really?
are literally just a middleman selling someone else's information. And yeah, okay, that works, but like, you're a scam.
I've never thought of that, like copywriting workouts and programs.
If you hired me for a coach and I gave you to a T everything you needed for like 8 weeks, all you'd have to do is take whatever it got you, right? And then just walk away and just start selling a fitness.
Yeah, I
Coaching
guess
program.
that's the shitty thing is if you actually start selling it wholesale, for
Yeah,
example,
wholesale.
to other clients, because the gyms sometimes encourage you, like mainstream gyms, invest in a couple personal training workouts or classes rather for like you to gain that workout knowledge to then just be able to do these same workouts on your own. So it's not like you're constantly going to have a personal trainer unless you need them to like push you and whatnot.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that aspect. But your brother is a personal trainer, right?
Yeah. So Brandon, you know, it's funny. Sometimes like I won't even know what Brandon's doing. You know, it goes from being like a fitness coach to like just working out to whatever, working at Equinox, being a first form athlete. Right. And the funny thing is Brandon used to be like really small. And now we're like, you know, when people see us in public, they mistake us for each other. And I'm
Really?
like, damn, like I gotta bring that gap back, you know?
See, there's the competitiveness.
Yeah, so
the
that's
brotherly
it's like
competitiveness.
healthy competition. And what makes me want to just better myself,
Mhm.
not to, you know, and
Yeah, he's killing it, man.
Yeah, dude,
he does a lot of Olympic lifts, right?
he does, you know, he's gone through all these different types of lifts. And right now he's doing this thing in San Francisco where it's like during COVID, you know, you had to work out outdoors. Him and his buddies started this like workout thing outdoors in these shipping containers. Like all their stuff was in shipping containers, and so they got the rights to the land, and so they put all these shipping containers and workout equipments in. And then now it's like each personal trainer there is like its own business. It's like walking into, you know, like a hair salon, and each little cubicle is a different person and different business. It's like that, and that's one area.
What a trip. So
They
when you
pay
said they
the
got
rent.
so they pay rent, they got the rights to the land?
Yeah. So one guy bought the prop or the land that was there, and it was one of his friends. I think most of them worked at Equinox, and they're like, yeah, let's start our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
This guy bought the land, and then they opened up the business on top of it, and so they just pay him the rent. And it's pretty cool, you know. It's like,
Exactly like a hair salon. Like
you know,
someone
like
owns it and you
that,
pay your
that's
fee.
healthy investment. You're trying to better your life, so you're paying someone to help you. And some people can't just go on Google and be like, how to squat or bench press. They want that human interaction of like, hey, you know, you're doing good, this is how you do it.
Yeah,
So that
proper
works.
form is
Absolutely.
so important, dude. I can't even tell you. I wish I would have had better training regimes like growing up, because so many impingements and injuries
Yeah.
just from not lifting properly. Like, Cahill, we love you, but like you weren't over our shoulders like teaching us how to freaking lift. It was
Do you want to know something funny about that? So in high school, I was an okay volleyball player. I was actually really good after high school. Very weird, right? Like when I played on the volleyball team for like in the Air Force, I was like, I didn't learn how to hit like this. I didn't learn how to do any of this, and nobody coached us during that time.
So you're saying technique was taught differently in the Air Force?
I don't know what it was in high school. You know, maybe it's just like,
Well, we were fucking off too. It's
yeah,
like
we fucked off.
It
a
was
lot.
that, and then I mean, just by virtue of playing more volleyball, you're gonna get better at volleyball, right?
Yeah.
And then you were growing into your body, like
Like I feel like we've always been athletic and we've always worked out. I don't know if it was like working out that made me better in volleyball or that aspect, or just like a mentality, or somehow whatever I was coached in my life, it like now clicked, and now suddenly, you know, I'm like, oh, I could have done this in high school. You know,
maybe we should have been getting stoned before practice.
oh man, volleyball's not fun when you're high at all, dude. It's crazy to even think about, like, during that sports aspect where it's like someone's job is to get paid to teach you these things, right? To run a sports team. But as an adult now, you know, I fully understand what everything was coached to me and why I did things. And I wish those things were like clicked in my head back then. And I think that's why you have like college athletes and professional, you know, athletes, because that clicked on to them at such a early on in their age. And so with now, you know, like even going back, I feel like I could be a football coach and do way better than I did in high school. And like, or just like little things that we were coached or taught.
You could totally be a football coach, just for one, your experience, and then for two, your leadership from the military. It's that would directly apply, right?
I think that's what I searched for after we graduated high school, after sports, because I was like, man, like football was my life. Like I had a coach, I had camaraderie. Now I like don't have anything. I'm kind of like a free bird. And joining the military, yes, I was searching for something else, but it was like that camaraderie that I was kind of missing. And I think that's, I know now that's definitely the one thing I miss the most transitioning out of the military is that camaraderie. I just feels like there's a human disconnection between, our society nowadays. And that's why we have so many people just arguing and competing and being on opposite ends of what they believe in. And like, I see it all the time on Facebook. People can't even argue without like unfriending each other. Like, it's like wild, like why can't we just have an intellectual conversation? And then if we don't
Agree to disagree.
if we agree to disagree, then we can still be friends. You and I can believe in different things and I'll still be your friend.
Yeah, it's an amazing point you bring up. The work of Sebastian Junger, Junger. He talks about this concept within the military of when people are transitioning to civilian life, it's like you miss someone truly counting on you, like having that mini tribe that humans are supposed to be a part of. You fiend for that feeling. It's healthy for you. You feel like you belong. You feel like you matter. A sense of purpose, exactly. And the idea of a nation is our flag should represent everyone on our soil, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. Like, you're supposed to be solving problems and disagreeing, but fighting to better your tribe, your nation.
Yep.
I think the problem occurs when, for one, you have a nation like America, like the American experiment, by definition, is going to have different types and creeds of people, and people are going to, of different hues and different colors. You're going to have issues by definition, but that flag is supposed to unite us.
Yeah.
And I understand there's been challenges in our history, and maybe we could have done things differently, like slavery, for example.
Yeah.
But in 2021, whatever trickle-down effects, which there have been since the beginning of America, when you say kind of representing the same team, like when you were in the military, you missed that transition into civilian life. Sebastian Junger talks about how there is a healthy sense of nationalism, and I truly believe this.
Yeah.
You have to kind of stand for something. Yeah. Like, we should have common morals and ethics no matter where you come from, no matter what color you are, where we can agree on trying our best to better society, and there's different ways to do it. It's up for debate. Yeah. And the key word there is debate. Yeah. And healthy debate, not cancel culture, not writing someone off because they said something you disagree with, but okay, like, I'm going to do my best to understand your point of view. Yeah. And hopefully we can come to a solution or a compromise to where, like, baby steps, let's move this nation forward. Yeah. But what was it? There's a trans athlete who's going to be representing the BMX team. Grant, can you pull this up? Who I believe, and I'll have to pull up the quote. They said, I want to, like, make it to the Olympics and win so I can burn the flag on the podium once they get there.
No way.
You didn't see this?
No, I haven't heard this at all.
I'm pretty sure. And I mean, it brings up, like, and I don't want to correlate that statement to, oh, this is a trans issue. Yeah. Because it's really not. Like, I want to focus on that individual who happens to be trans, who made this outlandish statement, which...
You know, what sucks about our society nowadays, too?
Okay, wait. So, one sec. Newsweek, transgender athlete Chelsea Wolfe says goal is to burn a U.S. flag at Olympic podium. And, okay, that we have freedom of speech and the ability to stand up for what you believe in the United States. A beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
If you want, the flag's been burned before. But
people have knelt.
I don't understand how any rational, right-minded individual can come to that conclusion, like, in solving my issues or for standing for what I believe in, the solution is I'm going to burn the U.S. flag at the Olympic podium. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. I just don't understand it, because there's different ways to get the same job done. I totally get it.
Oh, yeah.
To push ideas across.
Yeah.
But how is that a solution? How is that going to do anything or positive? Isn't that going to just separate us more and make people more pissed off?
You know, the issue with today, like when you see these news articles, it's not athlete Chelsea Wolf says goal is to burn U.S. flag. There's always a label, right? It's like transgender this, black this, gay guy this, whatever. There's always this label. The beautiful thing the military taught me was the most powerful thing is just numbers. It comes in force, right? Like, so unity. Like what we're doing to our country is literally like other countries are laughing at. You know, all China and Russia, all they want us to do is just destroy each other, and then that way one day when something happens, we don't have each other's backs. And so I think the crazy thing is these statements. You know, it's if you win at the Olympics and you burn the U.S. flag. Like, I mean, you could burn the U.S. flag now and you'd still get the same recognition because, you know, you're going to the Olympics and you just burnt the flag. But the thing is, there's other ways to deal with that hatred that you are currently feeling inside. And obviously, this person feels some sort of way. Why is the reason why they want to burn U.S. flag? We don't know. You know, maybe they don't like the way it looks.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
They don't like the way it looks. They don't like being called transgender, whatever it is, right? There's other ways to deal with it. And when I was in the military, I remember when Trump was running for president, or when I wasn't still in when Black Lives Matter was happening and the riots and stuff. But, you know, I had friends who were like, I had a Puerto Rican buddy, you know, who's like DJing at a house party. And I got like my best like Hispanic friend. And like, we were all just so different in different cultures that we like it doesn't matter who we were, what our, you know, stance was in life. We were all just together because we're American. We're American.
Exactly.
We're in the military. It's that painting of that, like, you know, shut up and do your job thing. And it's like the military doesn't. I mean, I don't want to say that they don't care. You know, who you love, what you look like, whatever. There's definitely some
like bias and
some
judgment.
bias towards that, but in general itself, you know, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, you know, gay, straight, Christian or Catholic. You have a duty, and you make sure that duty's done. And so I think America, the crazy thing is we're just like so disconnected, and we're not united.
Yeah. Do you think due to the lack of serious problems is leading to people like fishing for problems, especially on social media?
You know, I think so. And you know, there's people who will say that we have really big issues, but then like when you go to your day-to-day life, you're like, where are those issues that people have been talking about? Like where is the disconnect or the hatred? And you don't see it until it makes like headlines like this.
And I understand. I mean, maybe not in our day-to-day lives. There are people out there who are way different from us, and that they don't feel America's representing them properly. I understand that, and I think we're far from perfect, and people, I would hope, are trying to like better society in the world around them, and this is just how they see it fit. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like this kind of shit, burn a U.S. flag at the Olympic podium. I would like to sit down and have a conversation with that person. I'm sure they're going to be pissed or whatever reasons there. I'm not going to read into it too much, but I'm like, why? Like, what is that really? What you think's going to perpetuate like the best solution? Is that how we're going to move forward? And it's to tie it back into that healthy sense of nationalism is we have to all work together. And you said the military was focused on the job getting done no matter what your color or creed is. And that's how we should all strive to think. We should all strive to think like that. Yeah. And it's not about those different factors. It's if we can agree on certain morals and ethics, then it would make the labels diminish and hopefully eventually go away to where, like, instead of this black person killed someone or this transgender person said something outlandish or this white person is a racist bastard or whatever, it's like, no, let's focus on like this individual did something wrong. Absolutely. So if I remember this going back to like philosophy classes and whatnot, in ethics, if you focus on the individual, then the criteria becomes a lot easier in making judgments.
Yeah.
Because it's not a matter of something that's out of your control necessarily, like skin color.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Let's work on building better moral and ethics under our nation, under the U.S. flag.
Yeah.
And that's going to be better because right now with all the finger pointing and labeling, you're making team-like sports. You're just pushing people away. You're dividing us. You're building this
Absolutely.
gap. And to just treat humans as humans, then it's going to make things so much more simple. Because then you can hone in on morals and ethics.
Yeah.
But people love to associate skin color with certain behavior, which statistics don't lie.
Yeah.
There are certain statistics that exist that there is like correlation and causation there.
Yeah.
But you can trail it back and ask yourselves why. And what I focus on is the solution. And I think no matter what's happened in the past, if everyone tries to train themselves in thinking on this individual analysis, like on that level, it makes things a lot easier.
Absolutely. You know, what's crazy about this, it's like you're going to the Olympics to represent America, and then your plan is to burn the flag. If you don't like it, don't live here. Like it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that to everybody.
Well, it's like there's a level to where if you truly are that unhappy, the beauty of America is you could leave.
Yeah.
But I would hope that
I hope it doesn't get to that point.
No, our soldiers and people, if you love America and you want to change it, let's go about changing it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of our system too, is it's open for change.
Exactly.
And the people are supposed to change it. It's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of corruption. Our political system is not perfect.
Yeah, no,
but
I agree.
Guess what? There's still the ability. It's malleable. You can change it.
Yeah.
So I do hear that when someone's just being so brash and so harsh.
One-track-minded.
Guess what? Like, you're in America. You're not forced to stay here. You can try to go. Other places don't have that luxury.
No.
If you're like in North Korea, for example,
You can't leave.
imagine being in that state. And in previous, like in a historical sense, how many different nations have literally condemned their people? You can't leave. Like, you're forced to stay here. We don't have that here. If you want to burn the flag, there's going to be a lot of people mad, but you still have that right. And I think
people don't see, like, remember when Colin Kaepernick knelt on the flag?
Yeah.
People are so fucking mad about that. And when I was a young troop, I was like, dude, what the hell? And then it wasn't until I was older and realized, I was like, the whole reason why I joined the military was to protect our rights to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, freedom of speech. And what sucks is because people immediately were like, oh, he's kneeling on the flag. He just hates America. He didn't hate America. You know, he was playing in the NFL. It's like one of the best jobs you can get, getting paid to do what you love. He hated the fact that what was happening to the culture wasn't being heard.
Yeah, he felt like that was his solution.
And that was the solution because it took something so significant as to kneeling during the national anthem for people like, oh, shit, what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole thing with the whole rioting and stuff like that, too, especially during the riots. I was like, look, if you're rioting just to loot, you're a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were people that I was working with, you know, even, that were like, hey, yeah, I get this whole protesting, but this whole rioting thing, no. And I would logically, I'm a logical thinker, and I was like, look, man, you haven't had problems that people have been faced with, and you haven't had to fight for your right for stuff. And I was like, people were protesting very, peacefully, and nothing was being heard. People are getting tear gassed. And I was like, hey, I fought for, our freedoms. I served in the military because I felt like as an immigrant or as a kid coming from an immigrant family, I deserved to give back some way. And my way of giving back was like my time in service. I was like, if rioting is what it takes for people to finally be heard, I was like, just do it. I was like, but and there's pros and cons to both. Obviously, I'm not saying that I support everything that's going on in the whole world, not just our racial status or religion or whatever. Like I have my point of views, but I'm also a very logical thinker. So I'm very rational.
So you think it was logical to riot?
I mean, the whole rioting thing was because people weren't being heard at first, and then it came to the riots. It was like, and it sucks, right? It really sucks if you burn down your community. It's kind of like, It's kind of like the Eagles, whether they win a Super Bowl or not, they burn down their city. It's like, come on, guys, like you're literally burning down your community. So like I see it as that. I'm like, hey, like we live here, so why would we trash this? But I also understand that I've never been to the point of that racial status where,
you feel like you don't belong, like the nation's against you.
exactly. I've never felt that way. And I'm honestly saying, have racial slurs been said against me? Yeah, but then I let it not get to me because I'm like, there's other things in my life that can fully affect me. And some people can't get away from that. And I understand. But I don't know if you've ever been to that point, but I've never been to the point where I was so mad, like so angry that everything I've been doing is not being, or everything I'm saying is not being heard, that I have to riot for people to actually hear me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sucks, but that's America.
Yeah, I've been chirped at, we all have,
yeah,
like white boy this, white boy that, or whatever it is. But no, I haven't been to that point. And many people would argue that I'm on the right side of history being in America. I've gotten called out in class before at Cal State Fullerton for, like, it must be nice to be like a white male in today's society. I'm like, okay, like, you have the right to say that. Do I think it's productive? Do I think it solves anything? Absolutely not. Do I think rioting solves anything? Do I think it's the best solution? Absolutely not. I don't understand exactly how those individuals feel. And like you said, there's, I guess, a difference in someone rioting just to loot and acquire goods to someone that just feels so angry, I'm going to go burn down this nation that doesn't represent or take care of me.
Yeah.
I've never been there. I can try my best to understand it, but at the end of the day, I would still always argue, like, guys, there's better ways to get this done.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays. I mean, things aren't, they're becoming more and more to the surface. Like, everyone has phones, police injustices are being called out, which is great. But then on the flip side, labeling, as we're discussing, now all cops
are bad
or these certain types of people.
Yeah.
And that should be wrong too. There's wrongdoings happening on both sides all the time. Yeah. It's fluid, and problem solving and debate, it's very, very rare that one side is just 100% right, perfect, has all the facts down, the truths down, and the other side, no, it's fluid.
It's never like that.
So I don't know exactly, but like I said, there's got to be better ways.
We need to be
get things done.
Just good human beings.
It comes back to it, yeah.
It just comes back to being a good human being. That's all it really is. And you don't know what is someone's breaking point. So, you could be going through something, and I could just say one thing that literally keeps you here today, continues to, let you live out your life. And the way America is just people aren't being good human beings, and they're not, being there for one another, which really sucks. And you can preach it all you want. People are going to listen, and people aren't going to listen. And so, if I have that aspect in my life where people are reaching out to me and saying, hey, you've helped me through a lot of things, and I didn't even realize that, right? There's some people who I've never met before that reached out to me and like, what you're doing literally has changed my life. And I'm like, the impact you have on other people's lives matter a lot. And even if it doesn't seem like it's a lot, it can mean a whole, your whole podcast, having an episode, right? Maybe we're not making millions right now, but one person listening, all it takes is something to click in their mind. They're like, holy shit, something they talked about really just changes who I am. And like, oh, my mind is so open to learning different ways to solve my problems that now they're going to take that episode and start sharing with other people, right? It's like free marketing at that point, but now it's like you're literally reaching out and touching people's lives that you've never met before all over the world. And it's all comes down to being a good human being. And, for this athlete to want to burn the flag, or for the Black Lives Matter riots and stuff like that, it's because people have felt like they were just not, included in society, and it sucks that it's to that point, because I don't care what you look like, who you go for, whatever, if you're a good human being, I like you.
Exactly.
I respect everybody, and all it takes is for you to do something to just lose a little respect, and okay, but it doesn't mean I hate you. It just means I'm not going to associate myself. But I don't see you as the reason why you're like that because you're white or you're, gay or whatever. Like, no, labels aside, I don't really care. You're a living human being, and everyone looks, everyone's the same. Yeah, we all grow up in different families, but why does it matter what you look like or who you voted for? It's like the whole reason why America thrives is because we have all these different debates, and we're a melting pot. It brings in so much culture that literally, like, you can hate a certain group of people, and that certain group of people could be the reason why homes are being built in America. So it's just including other people and being good to one another. And I think that's the most important thing that anybody should take from this, or just in life in general.
Absolutely, man. Well said. Let's end it on that point. The idea and reflecting on what it means to be a good human being. I think that's the core tenet of everything that we're striving for today, whether it's navigating through high school into your military career and trying to better yourself, trying to be a better human being, analyzing humans around you that you're like, oh, God, like that was kind of a shitty feeling. They're not being a good human being. Into people committing suicide, and the heaviness of that situation is in their lives. If they were surrounded by more good human beings, what would be different in preventing riots, in preventing the need for Chelsea Wolfe to feel like, I'm going to put out the message that I'm going to burn the U.S. flag? If they felt like there's more good human beings in the United States. So it's just, I think so many issues can be solved if people just reflect on that and aren't so quick to judge or get pissed or let their emotional brain take over. Just like, guys, let's be good, do our best. And it's not going to be perfect, but let's be good human beings, right?
That's literally all it takes. Some of the worst times of my life, because I had great people with me, were some of also the best times of my life. And so I think that all we got to do is love one another and make sure that we're all taken care of, regardless of our status, and we'll just do much better. And it might not happen in our lifetime. So, if we start it now, maybe one day it will happen when our kids are like, oh my God, like everyone in America just loves each other.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, talking goes a long way, and thanks for coming on, man.
Always a pleasure. Every time we get together, it's always a good time too. So thanks for having me. Dope setup. Thanks, I really love watching everyone be successful. So thanks for having me on.
Of course, bro. All right, and be a good human being.
Always.
See you guys next time. Thanks.